be up here momentarily. Good afternoon. Go ahead. Get comfortable. You can move the mic around anywhere you like. As long as you can speak clearly into it so we can pick you up. Ellingson, right?
Yes.
There you go. All right. Go ahead. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to provide is true and accurate?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. DeBlunt, Mr. Leonard?
Mr. Ellingson, are you the same Jeremy Ellingson who caused to be filed rebuttal testimony in this docket?
Yes.
If I asked you those same questions today, would your answers be substantially the same?
Yes.
Do you have any corrections or modifications to make at this time to that testimony?
No.
Your Honor, I'd move admission of Ellingson rebuttal testimony. There are no exhibits to it.
Are there any objections?
Well, just to be clear, my standing objection, well, I don't know if I got it and that might clear it up, but I'd like a standing objection for every offer of rebuttal testimony prior to the persons he purports to rebut testifying.
Okay, noted. Thank you. Mr. Ellingson's testimony will be admitted and given the way due.
With that, Your Honor, we tender the witness for cross.
Thank you. Who's first? Takers? Going once. Mr. Jorde?
So I guess so. Why not? All right. Sir, are you the same Mr. Ellingson that testified for Summit up at the North Dakota PSC proceedings?
Yes.
All right. And you and I had a chance to talk up there, correct?
Yes.
Very good. Now, did you do work, your company do work in Iowa in attempts to repair affected tile on the DAPL project here?
Yes.
And that didn't go very well for you, did it?
Went fine.
Did it? Okay. And would you be surprised if landowners were to come testify after you to talk to the contrary and share opposite opinions of your work?
Possibly.
Okay. How many miles a day has Summit told you in Iowa of pipe they plan to be laying if this project were to get approved?
That's dependent on how many spreads, how many contractors you're talking about working at one time.
Well, how many employees, permanent and full-time employees, does Ellingson have as we sit here today?
We have 400.
And do you have enough presently? Well, let me start over. Are you under contract to work for Summit in North Dakota if the project's approved there?
Yes.
And do you have an active contract, a signed, executed contract to work in Iowa if it's approved here?
Yes.
What about any other state?
Yes.
Tell me all the states you're contracted for.
Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, and Nebraska.
And what have they told you relative to the spreads? Do they intend to go in a linear fashion as far as you're aware, or do you believe that construction work could be taking place in all states or more than one state at a time?
From what they've communicated to us, they'll have construction work taking place in all states, possibly at the same time.
And the 400 people you employ, are they all folks that are able to repair tile, operate heavy equipment, and be a part of the actual crew that would be out in the field?
I would say half of them are.
And is that 200 or approximate amount sufficient to perform all of the work based on Summits potentially being in multiple states at the same time?
Yes, between us and subcontractors that we will be using on the project, there'll be more than enough to take care of the tile repairs.
And that's what I was getting at. So subcontractors, about how many subcontractors and then their either employees or subcontractors do you think you're going to need to do the job you're requested to do if this is approved?
It just depends on the timing of the project and the permitting process that they're currently going through and when the project kicks off. Right now, we currently plan to use Jim Blood with Iowa Drainage for sure on the project, and there'll probably be several other ones from Iowa.
Okay, so are you, based on your work on the Dakota Access Pipeline, are you able at all to kind of ballpark how many miles per day pipe that might be laid in order to better estimate the amount of workforce you're going to actually need?
We've done projects like this in the past, and like I said, it just depends on how many spreads are going at what the condition is, the pipe size, the method of trenching. I mean, there's all kinds of variables that go into that.
Are you aware of, on a pattern tiled field, of roughly the typical spacing that tile lines are apart?
Yes.
And what is that?
Anywhere from 40 to 100.
And let's just assume at about 50 foot apart, have you confronted fields that have as much as approximately 158 tile lines or crossings, I should say?
Depends on the size of the farm, but yes.
How long would it take, or does it take your team to do work like that on a field that's completely pattern tiled, as an example?
Again, it depends on the conditions, the situation, the tile sizes that are being repaired, several things that go into that determination.
Well, what's the typical tile size that you encountered on the DAPL work you did in Iowa?
I would say between 4 and 6 inch was probably the most prominent tile sizes.
So if we assume that, for purposes of my question, and if we assume, say, ideal conditions, not too wet or not too adverse weather-wise, can you give me an idea of how many people, man or woman power, it would require you to do the repair of a field with approximately 158 tile crossings?
I'm not sure are you asking to do it in a certain amount of time, or what is your question?
Well,
exactly?
yeah, the first question is I'm trying to figure out generally how long, just in hours, would that take a team, and then how many people do you typically deploy for that type of work?
It just depends on the concentration of drain tile in that area. We've partnered with Summit early on in this project and have a good idea of where they're going to be, which is different than a lot of projects we worked on. And we're preparing and planning for that based on the information that we're gathering today.
Are you familiar with the prairie pothole region?
There's lots of prairie pothole regions along this project.
Okay, and have you done work in the Iowa areas that are affected by the prairie pothole region?
You'd have to clarify exactly the area you're talking about, but we worked in a lot of different places in the state of Iowa.
And does that take longer, generally, all things being equal, to work in that type of an environment?
No.
No more complicated from your view than an area without those characteristics. Is that what you're saying?
Not when you're talking about repairing tile in a trench.
Has your company worked on tile near CO2 pipelines before, existing pipelines?
We've worked on tile near pipelines for years.
But not carbon dioxide pipelines?
Not carbon dioxide pipelines, yes.
So related to the Iowa One call, that's a 3-day turnaround. Are you able to come back to a site within 3 days if necessary?
Yeah.
Okay. And after this project or work would be done by you, do you have people stationed in Iowa ready to respond, or is your home base in Minnesota, or where are you from?
We have offices in Minnesota and North Dakota. We also have small satellite offices in Iowa. We have offices in different parts of the country also. But yeah, we are stationed to dispatch crews all over the Midwest. We currently work in the 5-state area.
In terms of for locating tile, I think we might have talked about this before. Would you agree it's difficult to locate clay tile if you don't have maps or some guide assisting you of where it might be located?
It's definitely always easier to locate tile if you have a map, but we locate lots of tile without maps.
Can you locate clay tile through the use of LiDAR?
No.
And what about in wet or swampy conditions? Would you say that the ground penetrating radar or LiDAR is not as effective, if effective?
Typically, if the ground is wet with water in marshy areas, there's probably not tile there.
If you were to get this work and this project was approved, is it your job, Ellingson's job, to go out and work with landowners, obtain tile maps, set up that relationship, or who, if anyone, would do that?
Yeah, we've already been participating in that with Summit.
So does that mean, do you have like a call center, or when you say the word participating, are you going door to door? What's your efforts?
We have a team of our in-house drainage experts available to Summit's engineering, project management, land team to help address any sort of landowner drain tile issues that come up. That's what's different on this project than a lot of projects we've done, and I feel they've went over and above in the way they're approaching it on this project.
Would you agree that water can sometimes be carried and coming from a field over a mile away from where you might be working, and that if you disrupt the tile on the field you're working on, it could affect everything upstream from there?
Potentially, yep.
And does Ellingson have or offer a contract directly with the landowner, or is it simply working through Summit?
We're working for Summit.
And Ellingson doesn't provide a warranty of its work to any landowner or Iowa farmer, do they?
We provide a warranty to Summit.
Okay, so the answer is you do not warranty the work directly to the landowner, correct?
It's directly with Summit.
All right, so you don't warranty anything directly to the landowner, correct?
Correct.
All right. Now you say you won't cap tile, that you will not cap tile. So how do you handle flowing water, understanding that every tile line you're working on isn't going to be dry?
Well, in order to keep the tile working, you wouldn't cap them. You connect them back together. Not sure I understand your question.
Well, but in the meantime, while you're doing the repair, do you have a solution while you're doing the repair?
Not sure I follow your question.
Okay, well, when you sever the tile and the water's flowing, what happens to the area where the tile is severed?
There'll be a temporary repair installed if there's water flowing during construction.
Okay. If you make initial repairs, how long is the contract with Summit? Is it a lifetime? Are you contracted or obligated to do repairs or follow up for a lifetime of that repair, or are there any limitations on your warranty to Summit?
I'd have to defer to the contract between Summit and the landowner. I'm not sure exactly what that is, how that reads.
Well, and I appreciate that, but that's the contract between Summit and the landowner. I'm wondering if you and Summit have agreed that your company will be obligated to be the company that would perform repairs if they are necessary in the future.
Yes.
All right, you believe that's part of your contract?
Yes.
And have you agreed to a lifetime obligation, a lifetime warranty to Summit, that if the landowner were to call Summit, Summit could say, hey, Ellingson, in 10 years, get back out here?
As I said before, we have a warranty with Summit, and it is not a lifetime warranty. But I do not understand exactly what the agreements say between Summit and the landowners.
Okay, and that's totally fine. I'm trying to figure out if it's not lifetime, is there a term? For instance, we stand by our work for a period of 5 years or 10 years or fill in the blank. What's the term that you've agreed to?
Typically, our standard workmanship warranty at Ellingson is 5 years.
And if tile is tile work's being done, is the landowner able to be present and then, oh, Mr. Ellingson, we need to do this and this, or I noticed that? Are they allowed to be part of the process, or kind of be a watchdog, if you will?
Yes.
And if the landowner says, okay, this is how I want you to do that, do you take direction from the landowner, or do you have to defer to Summit since that's who you're contracted to?
We work directly with the landowners. Our role in this project is to ensure that the landowner's tile is put back to exactly the way it was or better from when it was broken by the pipeline company.
So do you believe, therefore, that you have leeway to make modifications or changes, repairs based on what the landowner in the field is telling you without double checking that it's okay with Summit?
Within the scope of the project, yes.
Okay, you'll have to help me a little bit within scope of the project. My example is, different landowners might have different preferences. I'm sure you've come across that. So I'm trying to figure out how far does the landowner's wishes or concerns are they taken into account by you in the field in the moment without having to go back to Summit?
As long as it has something directly to do with the repair of their tile, we are there on Summit's behalf to make sure that it gets repaired correctly. Anything outside of that that's over and above, obviously would be handled between the landowner and Summit.
When you're doing repairs, do you cut the ears off the connectors so that the trash coming through the system doesn't catch and plug up?
Not sure I understand the question.
Well, are you familiar with, when you connect two pieces of tile, what's your process for doing that?
Just connecting two standard pieces of tile or repairing something on this project?
Well, let's do the repairing on this project first. And let me just ask it this way. Have you ever come across issues with tile by the way they're connected, that sometimes there can be parts of the tile that affect the flow and sometimes allow trash or other debris to build up, thus affecting the tile's effectiveness?
No.
Okay. How would you connect a 7-inch tile? How do you go about that?
Basically, we take the tile and depending on the material type, we use the correct coupler to couple the tile back together and repair it as per the spec in the AIMP provided by Iowa.
Would you agree that clay tile is more brittle and problematic and can chip or crush once it's disturbed?
Depends on how long it's been in the ground. I've dug up clay tile that's been several years old that's as good as it was when it went in. But yeah, as clay tile ages, it becomes brittle. On several projects we've done in the Iowa area, we've ran into tile that has been replaced with plastic tile. And unlike other projects with a drain tile expert being involved, we're going to make sure the landowner's clay tile is taken care of and their new tile.
So do you replace it as a routine basis, or if you don't believe it was chipped or crushed, you'd leave that tile as is and replace as little as possible, or do you have a general policy when confronted with the clay tile?
We replace whatever's been damaged.
With new tile?
Yes, correct. Yep.
And you talk about there 150-foot zone. I wasn't totally clear on that. Just describe, what does that mean? There's a 150-foot distance that you operate in, or what was that distance, 150 foot?
We operate within the pipeline easement, just the same as the rest of the contractors.
Okay, all right. So if the pipeline easement is 110 feet, whatever that is, that's the area that you work within.
Correct.
And so if damages are caused, if they're like upstream damages that are caused that occur in an area outside of that zone, how do you deal with that? Are you allowed to go outside of the easement zone to remedy issues that might have been caused within the easement area?
Not sure how that would happen, but I'm sure with communication with the landowner and Summit that we would be able to take care of any issue the landowner had.
You talk about putting the tile inside a pipe. Do you use perforated pipe or solid pipe? How does that work?
We replace it with the same as the material that's there. So perforated pipe or non-perf, just depends on the area of the pipeline and the type of pipe that's there.
Do you use channel irons to support tile in certain instances?
Not in this project.
And why is that?
It's an outdated practice that doesn't work very well.
Okay, so what's your methodology if you're not using channel irons?
We support it with a larger pipe with the drain tile pipe inside of it, and depending on the width of the trench, we utilize sandbags for support if the span is too wide.
Is part of your contract also include the responsibility for dewatering the trench or removing water in the pits for boring?
No.
Who does that work?
General contractor.
All right, so whoever that is, they have to, so when you're in a particular area, then they would also need to have a crew with you at the same time generally?
Not sure I followed the question.
Well, if the general contractor does it, wouldn't they have to do that pretty much in proximity of the time that you got ready to do your work? Would they need to be there on site at the same time? Or can they do that work well in advance?
They can do that work in advance.
All right. And then, but if there's an event where it fills up with water after they leave, you would have to call them back. I'm just trying to figure out the scope of your responsibility. You wouldn't get involved with that dewatering.
No, our responsibility is to handle all the agricultural drain tile impacts on this project for Summit.
If you're working and you see that the tile is full of dirt or half full of dirt, do you replace the tile completely across the easement area, or are you just focused within the easement itself?
Just depends on the situation. And if the tile is full of dirt because the line has been abandoned and there's a new tile underneath it, then it stays abandoned. If there's something in question, we will get a hold of the landowner and ask how they would like it handled.
Do you have any leeway when you are repairing to change the elevation in any way such that the repaired tile would be above or below the pipeline, or how are those decisions made?
Tile is gravity flow, so there's really nothing you can change.
Okay, and that's kind of my point. So how do you have leeway to determine whether or not the gravity flow needs to become at a steeper grade in order to make room for the 12-inch separation for the pipe, or who is making those kind of decisions on the fly as you're going, if necessary?
On this project, because we're so involved up front, we're analyzing and looking at with Summit's construction team early on in the project, and I know that they've designed the pipeline deeper than most tile in a lot of areas, and for the most part, I mean, you can't change the grade, as I stated before, of the existing tile without going way off into the landowner's field and trying to deepen it up. So, our goal is to make sure that everything's put back on grade. Our crews have laser and GPS technology to do that, and the pipeline should be sufficiently below that.
What are the financial terms of your contract with Summit?
Not sure I understand the question.
Well, are you paid on a state-by-state basis? Are you paid by the mile prepared? Are you paid on a per diem or per hour? How does the compensation, is it structured?
We're paid on the project.
And the project being the entire footprint, or each state is considered?
The entire footprint.
All right, so you've already negotiated a rate for the entire footprint?
Yes.
Okay, what's that?
That's between Summit and us.
Well, the problem is you're here testifying, and it goes to the bias of you testifying in support of the project based on the financial incentives you have to do the project.
I don't object to confidentiality with respect to what Summit is paying its contractors.
Well, I bet he told Ernst & Young to put it in the report as incidental benefits. So and also it does go to bias. So.
Objection sustained. Let's move on.
So, given that you've already negotiated, is that a set rate? Like a project rate? Like, for instance, I'll put a new roof on your house for $10,000. Is it a set number?
Yes.
Okay, so therefore, because you've agreed to a set number, your profit will be affected by how long and how much subcontractor time and how much time for equipment, rental, etc., housing that you would incur, such that it would incentivize you to work faster so that your profit margin doesn't slip away, correct?
Not necessarily, no. I mean, we want to perform the project as efficiently as possible and ensuring that the landowners are getting the, as stated before, replacement of their tile to or better than it was before Summit and their team was there.
Well, sure, but given that you've already set in stone the total amount that you can make, you don't have a lot of room to have delays because that's going to affect your margins, correct?
Delays always affect margins on construction projects, yes.
All right, thank you. I don't have anything further.
Mr. Myers.
Mr. Ellingson, to your right. Back here. Hi, my name's David Myers. I'm an attorney here on behalf of the Iowa Farm Bureau, and I just have...
Mr. Ellingson, feel free to move the microphone around if you like.
Sure.
Just face him.
Yep.
I just have some questions for you. Kind of want to just start off with kind of a clarifying question. If the permit is granted and construction for the pipeline begins and there is damage to a landowner's drain tile, but that damage to the drain tile is not observed, let's say 10 years into the future, will Ellingson come on to that landowner's property and fix the drain tile?
Yeah, if there was a drain tile that was missed, we will take care of it.
And again, there's no time limit on that.
As stated before, if there's a problem with the tile, I know Summit will take care of the landowners.
Perfect, thank you. I just wanted to kind of clarify that. Have you read Summit's agricultural impact mitigation plan?
Yes.
And are you aware, as kind of part of that mitigation plan, the requirement to televise the trench on both sides?
Yes.
And can you just explain to us how you plan on going about televising the trench on both sides?
Basically, as we go through and repair tile, there's any indication that there's been rutting or issues with drain tile that could be crushed, we typically either replace a bigger stretch across the right-of-way or we inspect them, as you're speaking of, to ensure that there's no issues.
And will this video be recorded?
It's typically not recorded, no. There's inspectors on site and landowners, and if it's not working or there's an issue, there'll be a wet spot.
And if a landowner requested for you to record the video, would you be able to do that?
If on a certain circumstance they wanted to see that, I'm sure we could arrange to have that done.
As part of your rebuttal testimony on page 7, at line 20, you mention you will take a photo of each repair. Is that still accurate?
Yes.
And would you be willing to share the photo of the repairs with the landowner?
Yeah, we've had to do that on a lot of past projects. It's a really handy tool to ensure the landowner that their tile's getting repaired the way they want it done.
And just for clarification, that's a still photo with a camera?
It's like a photo taken with our crews. We have field engineers on every site with every contractor, ensuring that the drain tile is getting documented, GPS location shot in, station numbers identified, tile size, tile type, and photos that we actually keep in a live GIS database system for landowners to have access to or see at any time they want.
And if a landowner wanted to take their own photo before or after the repair, would you be okay with that?
Sure.
On page 8 of your testimony, at the rebuttal testimony at the very top, you were asked, in your experience, is it common for Ellingson to get called back after the work is completed to fix your repair work? And your answer is no, it is not common. And my question to you is, but it's happened before where Ellingson's had to come back out to fix something?
Obviously, all companies have, certain warranty issues. We like to take pride in doing good work and hoping that that's not the issue. And it's, we can do the best job the first time we're there. We don't make money coming back.
On page 7, lines 1 through 5, I'm kind of focused on the specific language that the drain tile will work as good as or better after the pipeline is built as it did before the pipeline came along. We heard a lot of testimony in the past 2 weeks about landowners being concerned about drain tile. Can you, just provide some how can landowners trust your work just beyond your word right now?
I mean, they can look at our experience. I mean, we've been in the drain tile business for 53 years. We've done projects across the Midwest. As you probably saw in my testimony, we install 30 to 40 million feet of tile in any given year. And we've done this kind of repair on not only pipeline projects, but wind farms, solar farms, all over the state of Iowa.
And what will happen if the drain tile does not work as good or better after the pipeline was constructed?
We will come back and meet with the landowner and address any issues or concerns they have until they're happy. I mean, we're here for the growers.
And as I kind of along the same lines, where we've heard some landowner testimony over the period of this hearing, one individual named Paul Wacker, I hope I'm pronouncing his last name correctly, described his experience where he had a pipeline construction on his property and there was soil settling underneath the tile, causing the tile line to bow and thereby prevent water from flowing through the tile. Can you just describe what Ellingson would do to prevent this situation?
Well, we'd start by making sure that there's no sags in the line, as he described. We're supporting the trench with a pipe with the tile inside, which gives it extra support, and we're also using sandbag support to ensure that doesn't happen.
Okay. On page 6, at the bottom of your testimony there, you note, we work with drainage authorities in various jurisdictions. Other than talking to landowners, can you just describe where you look to obtain tile maps?
Typically, landowners, as we've discussed already, but we talk with all the local NRCS or SCS offices, local counties, and collect as many and available drain tile maps or county main maps as we can get. Iowa actually has a pretty good record of them, so it makes it pretty easy.
And when you mention the counties, is that like the county recorder's office?
Whoever keeps track of the county mains, or if there's group main easements between landowners, and they have, I think, a GIS system in some of the counties that track that.
Can you just explain to us the difference between perforated tile and non-perforated tile?
Perforated tile has small holes in it to allow the water to get into the tile for drainage, and non-perforated tile is solid. It's typically used in areas where there's trees or wetlands or areas that we don't want drainage.
And can you just describe the circumstance when a larger pipe with perforated drain tile inside would be used?
Ask that question again.
Yes, can you describe the circumstance when larger pipe with perforated drain tile inside would be used? Kind of what soil setting, what?
Not sure I'm following your question. Typically, we don't put tile inside a tile. It's just the repairs are encased in a pipe for support, but outside of that, it's just the tile line.
Because I believe, and I'm trying to get a better understanding, it's a clarifying topic of when you were talking with Mr. Jorde a few minutes ago, you mentioned something to that effect, especially with larger pipe. Is that correct, or am I misremembering?
I'm not sure I'm following your question.
Can we go to page 8 of your rebuttal testimony? On line 14, so the question on line 14, in terms of designing a different solution, what does that mean? And as part of your response in line 18, rather than underneath it, what did you mean by that phrase?
In certain situations, if a landowner requests it, we install header systems. Basically, we remove all of the crossings in the field except for a couple, and we connect all the pipes on the upside, and we cap all the pipes on the downside. This gets most of the tile out of the right-of-way except for the 2 main crossings, but that's only on a landowner basis.
Can you just explain how a tile system would drain the soil for crop production if it's underneath the pipeline, so the tile is below the pipeline?
It'd really be no different than if it was on top.
How deep does the drainage tile need to be for someone to consider installing the pipeline above the drainage tile?
I'm not sure that's... I guess I'd have to defer to the engineers on the depth of the pipeline to see if they have that instance anywhere.
And then on page 9 of your testimony, towards the bottom, you note that Summit will pay for a new drainage system. Can you just explain what you mean by the new drainage system?
Oh, where's that at? In the... Where does it say that?
We'll come back. We'll move on briefly. Are you aware of the requirement that Ellingson or Summit will have to pay for increased costs for new drainage tile work that because of dam? Let me start over, excuse me. Are you aware of the requirement that Summit will have to pay for increased repair cost for drainage tile repair?
I'm not sure I follow the question. Summit is paying for all of the drain tile repair. I'm not sure I follow the increase part. Can you explain that a little more?
I'll just move on to a different topic along the same lines, different question. Will Ellingson tell landowners they have the ability to hire their own contractor to repair any drainage tile damage caused by the pipeline?
Yeah, if a landowner would like to involve his own tile contractor, part of our responsibility in the project is working with them to work through the feasibility of that and making sure it gets done correctly and right, and they can meet all the requirements that are needed to do that.
And then will Ellingson tell the landowner and the landowner's contractor that Summit would be responsible for the cost to repair the drain tile?
Yeah, Summit is responsible for the costs of repairing all the drain tile within the right-of-way that's damaged.
And then I want to just wrap up, circle back. I wrote down the wrong page number, so I do apologize. It is actually on page 8.
Sure.
We were talking about that new system. So as you'll see at the very bottom, you are asked who pays for the work to install a new system if the landowner chooses. And as you repeated throughout your testimony so far, Summit pays for that work. My question is, what is meant by new system?
A repair of the pipe of the tile crossing. That's the way I interpreted it.
And is that limited to the easement area, or is that for the entire parcel?
The easement area.
And then, still staying on page 8, excuse me, you are asked in line 19, who makes the decision about whether to go forward with the repairs of each pattern tile line or install a new system? Again, can you just explain what you mean by new system to that question?
Again, I think I interpreted all the questions to be related to repair work done within the easement.
Thank you. Those are all the questions I have.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Meyer?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, sir. I'm over here.
Sure.
Harold Meyer, Hardin County. I'm going to stay on some of these same pages around the same areas here. Just want to get some clarification. Many of your answers referred to landowners. Page 8, line 16, you want to work with the landowners. Same page, line 22, work with the landowner decides. And then on page 9, line 2, the landowner, the question was, do landowners have to use your firm? And the answer is no, the landowner can choose who they want. And I just want to make sure we get a clear understanding of how broad or narrow the term landowner is, particularly with respect to drainage districts. The tile in a drainage district is managed by trustees. They can be private trustees named by all the landowners in that district, or the default is county supervisors. So in working with individuals on this project, would you include the drainage district trustees, whether they're supervisors or private trustees, since they are the agents of all of the operators, the landowners in that district?
Yeah, sure. If there were questions or issues that needed to be addressed by the district on behalf of the landowners, we're more than happy to work with whoever we need to work with to make sure the landowners happy.
And not every with your previous experience with the Dakota line, did you work with any drainage districts on that project?
We were in a little different role on that project, so I'm sure we encountered drainage districts throughout with questions and things. But I'm sure we repaired tile that were part of drainage districts, but not directly like we have on this project.
You've heard the phrase strong fences make good neighbors.
For sure.
If you've ever sat in a drainage district meeting where there's a dispute, good tile makes good neighbors too.
For sure.
And so it would, I guess I'm hoping that when you use the word landowner, it's broad enough to include those that are going to end up sharing the cost of any repair or new tile, that sort of thing. So can we operate under that assumption?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. No other questions.